I stepped out of the shuttle with the kind of numb exhaustion that only comes when you know your career is already over. The docking ring of Meridian Station hummed beneath my boots. Air recyclers buzzed overhead, filling the corridors with that cold metallic smell every border outpost seemed to share. The gravity felt lighter than Earth's, not enough to float, just enough to remind me I was far away from everything that mattered. 3 days earlier, I had still been Lieutenant Commander Jackson Park, decorated officer, tactical specialist, hero of the Kepler-7 evacuation. Now I was the man who disobeyed a direct order. The Admiral called it insubordination. I called it the only decision I could still sleep with. They wanted me to leave 300 civilians behind inside a collapsing habitat dome so the fleet could maintain operation timing. I could still remember the children pressing their hands against the glass while evacuation ships launched without them. So I redirected the shuttles. And I accepted the consequences. Now Meridian was my punishment. A dead-end diplomatic station hanging near Ethran space, where humans and Ethrans smiled politely at each other while quietly distrusting every word exchanged between them. Routine patrols. Security reports. Paperwork. The slow death of ambition. I had already decided how this assignment would go. Keep my head down. Finish the posting. Try not to ruin what little remained of my future. Commander Sarah Chun met me near the airlock. She was short, sharp-eyed, and carried the tired confidence of someone who had spent too many years managing people more important than herself. "Welcome to the edge of nowhere, Park," she said, handing me a tablet containing my room assignment and duty rotation. "Security shift starts tomorrow. Try not to die of boredom before then." I gave a tired nod, expecting the usual orientation speech. Instead, she hesitated. Then she studied me carefully, like she already knew something I didn't. "There's one more thing," she said. "The Ethrans requested you specifically." That got my attention immediately. Ethrans almost never requested anyone. They preferred distance, observation, neutrality. Chun motioned for me to follow her into her office. The room was small, with reinforced windows overlooking drifting asteroid fields and the distant glow of Ethran border beacons. She poured coffee that tasted like recycled regret and leaned against her desk. "They've invited you to participate in something called Kelfa." I frowned. What exactly is Kelfa? For the first time since meeting her, Commander Chun looked genuinely serious. "It's their oldest trust ritual." She folded her arms. "And one of the most dangerous diplomatic practices in known space." Outside the window, stars drifted silently through the dark. Then she explained. Kelfa was only performed when an Ethran ruler believed another species might be worthy of true alliance. Not trade. Not temporary cooperation. Real trust. One individual would spend an entire night cycle alone with the Ethran Queen, from sunset until dawn, inside her private chamber. No guards. No weapons. No recordings. Nothing except conversation. The Ethrans were empathic beings. Not metaphorically. Literally. Their nervous systems could detect emotional patterns with terrifying accuracy. Their skin contained living chromatophores that shifted color with emotion. Blue for calm. Gold for curiosity. Red for alarm. During Kelfa, the Queen lowered her emotional defenses completely, which meant she became vulnerable to lies, manipulation, violence. Most species refused the ritual immediately. 12 hours of total honesty terrified people more than war ever could. And if someone fails? I asked quietly. Chun's expression darkened. The Ethrans end diplomatic relations permanently. I stared at her. No negotiations. They don't negotiate with liars. Silence filled the room for a moment. Then I asked the obvious question. Why me? Without answering, Chun slid a holo display across the desk. Security footage appeared. An earlier diplomatic reception on Meridian. I recognized myself standing beside an Ethran advisor during a formal ceremony. The advisor stumbled slightly while stepping backward. Protocol said I was supposed to ignore it. Touching an Ethran without permission was considered deeply offensive. But instinctively, I had reached out to steady him before stopping myself at the last second. The footage froze. Across the room stood Queen Lashara herself, observing the interaction. For the briefest moment, her skin had flashed gold. Curiosity. Recognition. She noticed, Chun said quietly. You reacted before politics entered your head. I looked back at the frozen image. That's why she chose me. She thinks humans are different from most species, Chun replied. Most civilizations act according to instinct or social programming. Humans choose. She paused. Sometimes badly. Then her eyes locked onto mine. But sometimes well. That night I sat alone in my quarters reading everything Meridian had on Queen Lashara. Young for an Ethran ruler. 47 cycles old. Already respected across half the galaxy for preventing conflicts before they began. Her people trusted empathy more than military power, which also made them vulnerable. The border sectors were becoming unstable. Pirate coalitions. Resource conflicts. Rumors of preventive strikes. A formal alliance between Terra and the Ethrans could stabilize the entire region. Or prevent a war that would kill billions. Refusing Keltha would destroy that possibility instantly. Accepting it meant spending 12 hours unable to hide a single ugly thought. I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Meridian's ventilation system whispered softly overhead like distant wind. I had already destroyed my career once by doing what felt right. What was one more impossible decision? The next morning Commander Chun called me in for final preparation. No games, she warned immediately. No rehearsed speeches. No diplomatic performance. She'll feel it. She'll feel everything. Chun handed me a cultural briefing file. Fear, anger, attraction, exhaustion, shame. Ethrans don't just hear words during Keltha. They experience intent. I rubbed my eyes tiredly. So basically I just sit there and get psychologically dissected for 12 hours. That's the short version. Then her expression softened slightly. The people who fail usually make the same mistake. What mistake? They try to control what she sees. Chun stepped closer. Don't give her the officer version of you, Park. Her voice lowered. Give her the real one. By the time Meridian's artificial sunset cycle began, my stomach felt tight enough to crack metal. The station lights slowly shifted into warm amber tones as night protocols activated. I walked alone through the long corridor leading toward the Ethran diplomatic wing. The doors opened before I reached them. Living wood. Not manufactured. Actual living material woven together with soft bioluminescent veins that glowed faint turquoise in the dark. The entrance unfolded like a flower. Inside, the chamber felt strangely warm. Curved walls surrounded the room in smooth organic shapes. Holographic stars drifted overhead in a perfect artificial night sky. Soft glowing plants cast pale blue light across low circular cushions arranged around a central table. And there she was. Queen Lashara. She stood taller than any human woman I had ever seen, elegant and impossibly composed beneath flowing emerald robes that moved gently with each breath. Her skin shimmered silver grey beneath the ambient light. Her eyes glowed gold. Not metaphorically. Actually gold. Vertical pupils watched me carefully without blinking. Her chromatophores glowed a calm deep blue. Peaceful. Controlled. She tilted her head slightly. Lieutenant Commander Jackson Park, she said. Her voice carried strange layered harmonics that vibrated faintly in my chest. Welcome to Keltha. I swallowed once. Your Majesty. Thank you for choosing me. She motioned toward the cushions. Tonight there are no titles. I slowly sat across from her. The chamber doors sealed shut behind me with a soft breath of air. No guards. No witnesses. No escape. Just the two of us beneath artificial stars. Lashara folded her long hands gracefully in her lap. Then she asked the question that shattered the last of my defenses. Why did you refuse the order on Kepler 7? For a few seconds, I said nothing. Not because I didn't know the answer. Because I knew lying here would be impossible. The room itself almost seemed designed to strip people apart slowly. The soft lights. The silence. The endless stars above us. Every part of the chamber made performance feel useless. Lashara waited patiently. No pressure. No interruption. Just those golden eyes watching me with impossible focus. So I told her the truth. The habitat dome was collapsing, I said quietly. The Admiral calculated evacuation timing and decided saving the civilians would slow fleet withdrawal by 40 minutes. I looked down briefly at my hands. There were children still inside. The words felt heavier spoken aloud. I remember seeing them through the glass. Some were crying. Some didn't even understand what was happening. My throat tightened slightly. The order was to leave them. Lashara's chromatophores shifted faintly. Thin lines of gold moved through the calm blue across her neck. Curiosity. Emotion. Attention. I redirected the rescue shuttles. I continued. The fleet lost time. I violated command authority. People higher up decided I endangered military operations. I forced out a tired breath. But I couldn't walk away. Silence settled between us. Not uncomfortable. Just honest. Finally she spoke. Most species justify survival above all things, she said softly. Yet you chose suffering instead. I gave a small shrug. Someone had to. Her eyes narrowed slightly. And if your decision had caused greater loss later? I leaned back slowly against the cushion. Then I would have carried that too. The answer surprised even me. But the moment I said it, something inside me relaxed. Because for the first time in months, I wasn't defending myself. I was simply telling the truth. Lashara studied me for several long seconds. Then her skin brightened faintly into warmer gold. Not approval. Recognition. You accept emotional consequences very easily for a soldier, she observed. I laughed once under my breath. Trust me, the military hates that about me. For the first time, the corner of her mouth lifted slightly. A small smile. Beautiful in a way that caught me off guard. The conversation continued slowly after that. Not like an interrogation. More like two exhausted people peeling away layers one at a time. She asked about Earth. About my childhood. About military life. About fear. That question hit harder than expected. What are you most afraid of, Jackson Park? I stared upward at the holographic stars while thinking. There were dozens of possible answers. Death. Failure. War. But exhaustion had already started wearing down my filters. So another truth escaped instead. I'm afraid of becoming numb. Her gold eyes remained fixed on me. I continued quietly. I've watched people stay inside systems so long they stop noticing what those systems do to them. I rubbed my palms together slowly. At some point survival becomes routine. Then routine becomes obedience. Then one day you wake up and realize you've spent years abandoning small parts of yourself just to function. The room remained perfectly silent. Lashara's chromatophores deepened into rich amber. Strong emotion. You fear losing your moral identity, she said softly. I fear waking up one day and realizing I stopped caring. That answer lingered between us for a long time. Then, unexpectedly, she began speaking about herself. Not formally. Not diplomatically. Personally. She told me what it meant to rule as an empath. To spend decades sensing dishonesty behind every smile. Every treaty. Every compliment. People think empathy must feel beautiful, she said quietly. It does not. The blue across her skin dimmed slightly. It is exhausting to hear fear hidden beneath praise. To sense ambition inside affection. To know when someone is speaking carefully instead of honestly. She lowered her gaze briefly. I have ruled for 29 human years. There was no pride in her voice. Only fatigue. In all that time, she continued, very few beings have ever spoken to me without wanting something. Something about that sentence landed hard inside my chest. Because suddenly she no longer felt untouchable. She felt lonely. Deeply lonely. And somehow that felt worse. I looked at her more carefully then. The elegant posture. The controlled breathing. The impossible calm. It wasn't superiority. It was discipline. A lifetime spent protecting herself from disappointment. That's why Kelthar exists, I realized quietly. She looked up. Yes. Her voice was almost a whisper now. For one night, I lower every defense. Her fingers rested lightly against her own wrist. No politics. No masks. No strategy. The gold in her skin dimmed slightly. Only truth. I nodded slowly. That sounds terrifying. Another faint smile appeared. It is. Hours passed without either of us noticing. At some point she asked me about loneliness. The question hit me harder than all the others combined. Because loneliness was harder to explain honestly. I almost gave her some safe answer about military deployments. Almost. But I could already feel how fake it would sound. So I exhaled slowly and told her the real version instead. Loneliness isn't silence, I said quietly. It's feeling unseen. Her eyes never left mine. You can stand inside a crowded command room giving orders to hundreds of people and still feel completely disconnected from everyone around you. I looked down again. After Kepler 7 it got worse. The words came slower now. Some officers treated me like a criminal. Others treated me like some kind of hero. I shook my head faintly. Neither felt real. A long silence followed. Then Lashara spoke so softly I almost missed it. I understand. The room suddenly felt smaller. More intimate. She folded her hands together carefully. I have spoken to thousands of diplomats, she said. Thousands. A faint lavender color moved briefly beneath the gold across her skin. Something sad. But when the chamber doors close and the ceremonies end. Her voice grew quieter. There is nobody left who speaks to me without caution. For the first time that night, I saw something fragile beneath her composure. Not weakness. Isolation. The realization hit me unexpectedly hard. This woman could sense the emotions of entire rooms. Yet she had probably never felt truly close to anyone in years. Maybe decades. That sounds unbearable, I admitted. Lashara looked at me carefully. It becomes normal eventually. That sounds worse. The words slipped out before I could stop them. For a moment her expression changed completely. Surprise. Then something warmer. The gold across her throat brightened softly. You say unusual things, she murmured. I've been told that before. Another small smile. This one lingered longer. By now fatigue had begun settling deep into my body. My back hurt from the low cushions. My eyes burned every time I blinked. The station's artificial night cycle moved slowly overhead while holographic constellations drifted across the ceiling. Lashara hadn't moved at all. Not once. You're exhausted, she observed gently. That obvious. To an empath? Extremely. I rubbed my face tiredly. 12 straight hours is brutal. The people who fail Keltha usually try to fight exhaustion, she said. They rehearse responses, maintain posture, hide discomfort. And that never works. Her gold eyes softened slightly. Eventually fatigue removes performance. I laughed quietly. So basically your ritual is psychological erosion. That is an aggressive description. But accurate. A pause. Then another tiny smile. Yes. For some reason, that made me laugh harder. Maybe because I was tired. Maybe because she was. Eventually she tilted her head slightly. Close your eyes for a while. I blinked at her. That sounds dangerous. You believe I would harm you? No, I admitted. Then rest. I hesitated before finally leaning back against the cushion. The soft lighting blurred slightly around the edges of my vision. I closed my eyes. Darkness settled in immediately. Then her voice filled the room again. Low. Calm. Steady. She began describing her homeworld. Crystal oceans that sang when wind passed across them. Forests made from living light. Cities grown instead of built. Children running barefoot through glowing silver grass beneath twin moons. I listened quietly while exhaustion slowly dragged at my consciousness. Her voice changed when she spoke about Ethra. Less controlled. Less royal. For the first time all night, she sounded simply like herself. And somewhere between her words and the artificial stars overhead, I realized something dangerous. I was beginning to forget she was supposed to be untouchable. At some point, I stopped thinking of the night as a test. That realization scared me more than anything else. Because the entire purpose of Keltha was supposed to be evaluation. Diplomacy. Measured trust between civilizations. But somewhere during those endless quiet hours beneath artificial stars, the distance between us had started disappearing. And I wasn't sure when it happened. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe honesty becomes addictive once you stop fighting it. Or maybe loneliness recognizes itself faster than anything else in the universe. I opened my eyes again slowly. Lashara was still sitting across from me, completely motionless except for the soft pulse of color shifting beneath her silver-gray skin. Blue. Gold. Small traces of amber. Emotion flowing openly now. Not hidden anymore. The room felt warmer than before. Or maybe that was just my imagination. How long was I out? I asked quietly. Not long, she replied. Her voice remained soft, almost careful now. You were still listening. I rubbed my eyes slowly. I think I dreamed about your oceans. That made the faintest gold shimmer move across her throat. Most visitors dream about running away. I let out a tired laugh. I might still. You would already know if you truly wanted to. That answer stayed with me. Because she was right. If I had wanted emotional distance, I would have built it hours ago. Instead, I kept sitting here. Still talking. Still listening. Still letting myself be seen. Lashara studied me quietly for a moment before asking another question. What do humans want most? I smiled weakly. You're asking the wrong species. We can barely agree on lunch. Another tiny smile from her. But she waited anyway. So I thought seriously about it. We want connection, I said eventually. Even the people pretending they don't. I leaned forward slightly, resting my arms on my knees. Everything humans build eventually becomes about connection somehow. I gestured vaguely upward. Ships. Governments. Networks. Armies. Families. My voice lowered. We are terrified of being alone. The gold in her eyes softened. That fear shapes your species strongly. It shapes everybody strongly. For the first time all night, Lashara looked away before answering. Yes. The single word carried more weight than entire speeches. Silence stretched between us again. But by now the silence felt natural. Comfortable. Like we no longer needed to constantly fill the space between breaths. I noticed my body relaxing more around her. That should have worried me. Instead, it felt dangerous in a completely different way. Because trust was forming. Real trust. And I wasn't prepared for how quickly it could happen once nobody was pretending anymore. Lashara suddenly tilted her head slightly. You still think carefully before every personal answer. I blinked. I do. Yes. Her eyes remained fixed on mine. You answer honestly. But there are still places inside you that tense first. I laughed quietly. So now I'm being psychologically analyzed in real time. You are observing me too. Fair point. I studied her for a few seconds before speaking carefully. You always sound calm, I said. Even when you're talking about painful things. That is discipline. No, I replied softly. That's survival. Something changed in her expression immediately. Tiny. Almost invisible. But I saw it. For the first time since entering the chamber, Queen Lashara looked emotionally exposed. The lavender color returned beneath the gold. Sadness. Recognition. You notice more than most humans, she said quietly. I've had practice reading people who hide things. And what do you believe I'm hiding? The question landed directly between us. Dangerous. Intimate. I hesitated. Not because I feared the answer. Because I feared being right. Finally, I spoke carefully. I think you're tired of being needed more than being known. The room went completely still. Even the artificial ventilation seemed quieter somehow. Lashara didn't move. Didn't blink. Then slowly, very slowly, her chromatophores shifted into a color I hadn't seen before. Soft violet mixed with gold. Beautiful. And painfully vulnerable. When I was young, she said softly, I believed empathy would make leadership kinder. Her eyes lowered slightly. But eventually I realized constant understanding creates distance too. I frowned slightly. How? Because people become afraid of hiding from you. The answer hit immediately. Of course. Nobody could fully relax around someone who sensed emotional dishonesty automatically. No wonder she seemed lonely. No wonder Keltha existed at all. I spent years learning how to make others comfortable, she continued quietly. Learning how much emotion to reveal. How much honesty frightened people. How much restraint they required from me. Her voice almost disappeared near the end. It becomes difficult to know where performance stops. I stared at her for several seconds. Then I asked the question before thinking. So who are you when nobody's watching? The moment the words left my mouth, something changed. Not in the room. In her. Lashara inhaled slowly. The colors beneath her skin dimmed into deep blue again while she thought carefully. Finally she answered. I don't know anymore. That hurt to hear. Not because it sounded tragic. Because it sounded real. I leaned back slowly against the cushion again. You know what the worst part is? I murmured. Her eyes lifted toward me. I understand that feeling. A long pause followed. Then she asked quietly, when did you stop feeling known? I stared upward at the holographic stars. That answer took longer. Probably the academy, I admitted eventually. You learn very quickly which parts of yourself are useful to institutions. I folded my hands together loosely. Confidence, discipline, obedience, efficiency. I smiled faintly without humor. But nobody really rewards uncertainty, or compassion when it interferes with objectives. The memory of Kepler-7 flashed through my head again. The screaming alarms. The children. The evacuation countdown. They called my decision emotional, I said quietly. Lashara's eyes narrowed slightly. And was it? Yes. I met her gaze directly. And I'd do it again. The gold returned immediately across her skin. Bright this time. Warm. You say difficult truths very easily. No, I corrected softly. I just got tired of pretending difficult truths aren't true. That earned another silence. But now the silences between us felt almost alive. Not empty. Full. At some point, I realized I had stopped sitting formally altogether. My posture relaxed naturally now. One knee bent loosely. One arm resting against the cushion beside me. Lashara noticed too. You are more comfortable now. I blame exhaustion. That is not the only reason. No, it wasn't. And we both knew it. Hours continued slipping by strangely after that. Time inside the chamber no longer felt normal. The outside galaxy seemed very far away now. No admirals. No diplomacy. No military hierarchy. Just two exhausted people speaking honestly in the middle of artificial starlight. Lashara eventually shifted slightly for the first time all night. The movement was graceful and slow. Then she asked quietly, "May I ask something more personal?" I let out a tired breath. At this point, I think we passed personal 3 hours ago. A soft flash of gold. Amusement. Then her expression grew serious again. Have you ever been loved without conditions? The question hit so hard it physically hurt. I looked away immediately. And that alone probably gave her the answer already. Still, she waited. So eventually I forced myself to speak. I don't know. The honesty of it felt brutal. My parents loved me, I think. But they also needed me to succeed. I swallowed once. The military respected me when I was useful. Another pause. And relationships. I laughed softly without humor. Most of them ended once duty came first often enough. The room stayed quiet. Then Lashara asked the question that shattered something inside me. And what do you believe you deserve? I froze completely. No one had ever asked me that before. Not once. Not commanders. Not friends. Not lovers. My mind searched automatically for an answer and found nothing. Because the truth was horrifyingly simple. I had spent so many years trying to earn value that I genuinely didn't know what unconditional care was supposed to feel like anymore. Lashara watched realization spread across my face slowly. Her expression softened immediately. Not pity. Never pity. Understanding. You do not have to answer immediately, she said gently. But I shook my head. No, I whispered. I think maybe I should. I looked down at my hands for a long moment before speaking again. I think. My throat tightened slightly. I think I'm afraid that if I stop being useful, there won't be anything left worth loving. The second I admitted it aloud, shame hit me instantly. Raw. Embarrassing. Human. But Lashara didn't look disturbed. Didn't look disappointed. Instead, her chromatophores glowed with that same soft violet-gold mixture again. Emotion. Deep emotion. Then, very slowly, she reached her hand across the space between us. Not touching yet. Just offering presence. And for reasons I couldn't fully explain. I didn't pull away, her hand remained there between us. Still. Patient. Not demanding anything. Just waiting. The soft glow from the bioluminescent plants painted silver-blue light across her skin while the holographic stars drifted slowly overhead. I stared at her hand longer than I should have. Because I understood what this meant for her. Etherans did not touch casually. Especially not during Kelfa. Not while emotionally unshielded. This wasn't instinct. It was trust. Carefully chosen trust. My chest tightened unexpectedly. Then slowly, before I could overthink it, I placed my hand beneath hers. The contact was gentle. Cool skin against warm skin. For a brief second, neither of us moved. And then something changed. Not physically. Emotionally. It felt like some invisible tension that had existed all night suddenly dissolved between us. Lashara inhaled softly. The colors beneath her skin brightened instantly into warm gold threaded with faint violet. I felt strangely aware of everything at once. Her breathing. The slight tremor in my own fingers. The exhaustion in my bones. The silence around us. And beneath all of it. Relief. Not romantic relief. Not even attraction yet. Something deeper. The relief of no longer feeling emotionally alone. Her voice was barely above a whisper. You did not hesitate because of fear. I looked at our hands. I hesitated because it mattered. That answer affected her more than I expected. The gold along her throat deepened slowly. For several long seconds neither of us spoke again. We simply sat there beneath artificial stars while the station continued drifting silently through the dark beyond the chamber walls. Then Lashara finally asked quietly, "What are you feeling right now?" I laughed weakly. That question feels unfair when talking to an empath. You still must choose the words. I thought carefully. Tired, I admitted first. That earned the smallest shimmer of amusement from her. Still true. I exhaled slowly. But also, I searched for the right word. Calm. Her eyes softened slightly. You have not felt calm in a long time. It wasn't a question. No, I admitted. Another pause stretched between us. Then the truth slipped out before I could stop it. And honestly, I think this is the first conversation I've had in years where I don't feel like I'm being evaluated. That made her expression shift immediately. A flash of sadness crossed her face. Humans evaluate each other constantly, she said quietly. So do Etherans. Yes, she agreed softly. But your species turns worth into performance. The statement landed with uncomfortable accuracy. Because she was right. Military rank. Success. Status. Productivity. Humans built entire identities around usefulness. And somewhere along the way, many of us forgot how to simply exist beside another person without trying to prove something. Lashara's fingers moved slightly against mine. Small. Careful. You still expect rejection, she observed. I looked at her. What makes you say that? Because every vulnerable answer you give is followed by preparation. I frowned slightly. Preparation for what? To lose connection. That one hit hard enough to steal my breath for a second. Because I immediately knew she was right. Every honest thing I revealed tonight came with the instinctive expectation that eventually it would make someone leave. Disappoint them. Change how they saw me. Lashara watched realization cross my face. Then her voice softened further. Who taught you that vulnerability creates abandonment? The question hurt because I didn't have a clean answer. Life taught it slowly. Piece by piece. Failure by failure. You spend enough years inside military structures, I murmured, and eventually weakness starts feeling dangerous. Her gold eyes remained steady. But you are not weak. I gave a tired smile. That depends who you ask. No, she said quietly. It depends whether survival has replaced honesty. The room fell silent again. But now the silence felt heavier. More intimate. Because the conversation was no longer about politics or philosophy anymore. It was about us. Two exhausted people slowly discovering how much damage loneliness could do over time. At some point, I realized my thumb had unconsciously shifted slightly against her hand. The moment I noticed, I froze. So did she. For half a heartbeat neither of us moved. Then Lashara's chromatophores bloomed into sudden rose gold so bright it almost glowed beneath her skin. Emotion. Strong emotion. Not hidden. Not controlled. And somehow that affected me more than if she had kissed me. Because she wasn't hiding anymore either. The realization made my pulse jump. Lashara noticed immediately. A faint shimmer of gold crossed her cheeks. You are nervous now, she said softly. I laughed under my breath. You can literally feel my heartbeat. Yes. That seems wildly unfair. A quiet smile touched her lips again. You are aware I can also feel that you are trying very hard not to pull away. That nearly destroyed what remained of my composure. I looked upward toward the holographic stars, suddenly very aware of how close she was sitting now. This ritual is cruel, I muttered tiredly. Cruel. It forces people to stop hiding. That is why most fear it. I slowly looked back at her. And you? Her expression shifted. The warmth softened slightly into something sadder. I feared it too, once. The answer surprised me. You. Lashara nodded slowly. When I first became queen, I believed Keltha would help me understand others better. Her eyes lowered briefly. Instead, I learned how frightened most people become when truly seen. Something in her voice hurt to hear. How many completed the ritual? I asked quietly. She was silent for a moment. Very few. And how many stayed afterward? This time the silence lasted longer. Finally she answered. None. That single word settled heavily inside the chamber. Suddenly everything made sense. The emotional distance. The control. The restraint. Keltha did not simply expose truth. It exposed how temporary most connection really was. No wonder she seemed careful even now. I looked down at our joined hands again. Then back at her. You expected me to leave emotionally too. Her eyes met mine slowly. Yes. The honesty of it almost hurt. I leaned back against the cushion with a long, exhausted breath. Well, I murmured, good news. A faint shimmer of gold returned. What news? I'm apparently too emotionally damaged to run away anymore. That made her laugh. Not politely. Not formally. An actual laugh. Soft and surprised and beautiful enough to completely catch me off guard. The sound filled the chamber warmly. And for one brief moment, she didn't look like a queen at all. She looked simply like a woman who had forgotten how good it felt to genuinely laugh beside someone. The realization hit both of us at the same time. Her laughter faded slowly. Our eyes remained locked. And suddenly the atmosphere between us changed again. Quieter now. Closer. Dangerously close. I became very aware that we were still holding hands. Very aware that neither of us wanted to let go. Lashara's voice dropped almost to a whisper. You are different from what I expected, Jackson Park. I swallowed once. That makes two of us. The rose gold color deepened beneath her skin again. Then slowly, carefully, she moved closer. Not enough to touch anywhere except our hands, but enough that I could feel the faint cool warmth radiating from her skin. Enough to smell the subtle scent surrounding her. Something clean. Like rain over cold stone. You asked earlier who I am when nobody is watching, she said quietly. I nodded once. Her golden eyes held mine completely now. I think, she hesitated softly. I think this may be the closest I have come to remembering. The honesty in that sentence hit me harder than anything else she'd said all night. Because it wasn't political. It wasn't ceremonial. It was personal. Deeply personal. And suddenly I understood something terrifying. This wasn't just changing me. It was changing her too. Outside the chamber walls, Meridian Station continued spinning silently through endless space. But inside this room beneath artificial stars, something fragile and irreversible had already begun to at some point during the final hours of the night. Exhaustion stopped feeling heavy. It became honest. There was no energy left for performance anymore. No walls. No careful distance. Just breathing. Silence. And the quiet awareness of another person beside you. Lashara and I remained seated close together beneath the fading holographic stars, our hands still joined between us. Neither of us mentioned it anymore. The contact had stopped feeling unusual. Now it simply felt right. The artificial night above us slowly began to dim. Very faintly, pale gold light started appearing along the curved walls of the chamber. Morning. The realization hit my chest harder than expected. This was ending. And I suddenly understood how badly I didn't want it to. Lashara noticed the shift in me immediately. Her chromatophores softened into calm gold threaded with traces of violet. "You are troubled," she said quietly. I let out a tired breath. The sunrise feels unfair. For a moment, sadness flickered openly across her face. "Yes," she whispered. Neither of us spoke after that. We simply sat there listening to the low hum of Meridian Station while dawn slowly approached around us. Finally, I broke the silence. "What happens after this?" Lashara looked toward the brightening walls before answering. "If Keltha is completed truthfully, Ethra will formally offer alliance to Terra." Her voice returned slightly toward its royal steadiness now, though the warmth remained. "Trade access. Joint defense agreements. Shared mediation authority in the border systems." I nodded slowly. "A real partnership." "Yes." Then I asked the question that had been sitting inside my chest for the last hour. "And us?" That made her eyes return to mine immediately. Not the Queen now. Just Lashara. The gold in her skin deepened slowly. "You ask difficult questions near dawn. I think that's when the important ones usually appear." A small smile touched her lips, but emotion still lingered behind it. "I do not know what happens to us," she admitted softly. "That frightens me." The honesty of it hit me deeply, because powerful people almost never admitted fear aloud. I squeezed her hand gently without thinking. Her breath caught almost invisibly. "Good," I murmured. Her eyes narrowed slightly in confusion. "Good. If this mattered less, you wouldn't be afraid to lose it." For several seconds she simply looked at me. Then her chromatophores bloomed fully into warm rose gold. Beautiful. Open. Unhidden. "No one has ever spoken to me this way before," she whispered. "Maybe nobody ever stayed long enough." The words settled quietly between us. Outside the chamber, the station's morning cycle continued brightening. The stars overhead slowly faded one by one. Lashara's gaze lowered briefly toward our hands. "When Keltha ends," she said softly, "most participants leave quickly." I frowned. "Why?" "Because honesty creates attachment." Her fingers moved lightly against mine again. "And attachment terrifies people." I looked at her for a long moment. "Does it terrify you?" The question lingered. Then finally she answered truthfully. "Yes." A pause, but not enough to make me let go. Something in my chest tightened painfully at that answer, because I realized I felt exactly the same way. I was tired, emotionally stripped raw, completely uncertain what any of this meant for the future, and somehow still unwilling to walk away. The chamber brightened further. Soft gold morning light now replaced most of the artificial starlight around us. The night was ending. Lashara slowly withdrew her hand for the first time in hours. The sudden absence of contact felt colder than the room itself. She rose gracefully to her feet. I stood a second later, my body protesting immediately from exhaustion and stiffness. That earned the faintest shimmer of amusement from her. Humans truly are fragile without sleep. "We are delicate little creatures," I admitted. Her laughter returned softly again. Then the expression faded into something more emotional. For a moment neither of us moved. We simply stood there facing each other while the final stars disappeared overhead. And suddenly I realized something terrifying. I didn't know how to say goodbye. Not after this. Not after seeing each other this clearly. Lashara stepped closer slowly. Very close now. Close enough that I could see the tiny shifting lights beneath her silver-gray skin. Close enough to feel her breathing. Her voice lowered almost to a whisper. You stayed. The words carried enormous weight. Not because of the ritual. Because of her. I looked directly into her golden eyes. So did you. For a second, emotion crossed her face so openly it almost hurt to witness. Relief. Affection. Fear. Hope. All at once. Then, very gently, she lifted one hand and touched my face. Just the backs of her fingers against my cheek. Cool skin. Careful touch. But it felt more intimate than anything I had experienced in years. Her chromatophores glowed softly with violet and gold. You saw me, she whispered. The honesty in her voice nearly broke something inside me. I covered her hand lightly with my own. You saw me too. Silence. Breathing. Morning light. Then suddenly the living wooden doors behind us began unfolding open with soft musical sounds. Kelthar was over. Reality returned all at once. Diplomacy. Politics. Titles. Borders. But somehow none of those things felt as powerful anymore. Lashara lowered her hand slowly. Yet neither of us stepped away. Not immediately. Finally she straightened slightly, though traces of warmth still remained openly visible across her skin. Come, she said quietly. I will walk with you. Together we stepped out of the chamber. Ethran attendants standing outside immediately lowered their eyes respectfully. None of them spoke, but every single one of them noticed the colors glowing beneath their queen's skin. And the way she walked beside me instead of ahead of me. Commander Sarah Chun waited near the station corridor with her arms folded tightly across her chest. The moment she saw us, one eyebrow lifted slightly. Not dramatic. But for someone as controlled as Chun, it was practically shock. Well, she said carefully. That looks promising. I glanced toward Lashara once before answering. Kelthar is complete. Chun's eyes moved briefly between us. Then toward our expressions. Understanding slowly appeared on her face. The alliance. Lashara answered herself. Ethra will proceed with formal negotiations. Even Chun looked relieved at that. But then Lashara added something unexpected. And Lieutenant Commander Park has honored us greatly. The station corridor went very still. Because that sentence was not diplomatic language. It was personal. Chun clearly realized that too. But to her credit, she didn't comment. Instead she gave a short respectful nod. We'll begin preparing the channels immediately. Then, very deliberately, she stepped away and gave us privacy. Lashara turned toward me again.
No guards.
No officials. No masks. Just us. If you return to Ethran space, she said softly, ask for me by name. Not title. Not queen. Name. I swallowed once. Lashara. The gold in her eyes brightened instantly at hearing it spoken that way. Yes. I smiled tiredly. That sounds dangerously close to optimism. It's a new personality trait. I'm testing it. A soft laugh escaped her again. Then slowly, almost carefully, she stepped closer one final time. Her fingers brushed lightly along my cheek before withdrawing. Rest now, Jackson Park. Her voice softened deeply. And know that somewhere beyond this station, someone is waiting for you. For several seconds I couldn't answer. Because no one had ever said words like that to me before. Not honestly. Finally, I managed a quiet. I will come back. Her chromatophores shimmered fully into rose gold once more. I know. Then the distance between us finally happened. Small. Necessary. Painful. I stepped backward toward the shuttle corridor while she remained standing beneath the station lights, tall and luminous and no longer quite as lonely as before. And as the doors slowly closed between us, one final realization settled quietly inside me. The alliance between our worlds had not begun because of politics. It had begun because two exhausted people chose honesty over fear. And somewhere in the endless silence between the stars, neither of us was alone anymore.